Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we actually have some pretty interesting stuff to go and cover up over here when it comes to, well, a lot of inside leaks and information that came from Xbox. Now, as you guys do or do not know, Xbox is kind of in this really awkward limbo where the most recent PlayStation showcase and some hardware reveals were not necessarily the most well sought after and hyped up things, and a lot of people are a little bit sketchy when it comes to PlayStation besides the fact of upcoming Final Fantasy 16 and Spider-Man, but as well, Xbox right before then had a pretty big stint of like 2 to 3 months where just a lot of really bad things were not good, like a lot of bad PR, like layoffs and everything else in between. But now, with the most recent game that just came out, aka Redfall, there's actually a lot of internal leaks that have now come out in terms of people discussing the problems and the drama and everything else with it, and apparently it was a lot worse than expected. Now, this is intriguing because the game was also somewhat bought out in the middle of the acquisition, so it was being worked on, and then they were still basically in the groove for everything, and it was still released, but there's a lot of other side problems too with over-marketing and over-expectations and everything else, and well, it was a little bit of a weirder talk. So we're going to talk about this, talk about the leaks and everything else in between as well. Make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. Twitter and Twitch down below if you guys want to follow. Would love to have you guys there. And of course, as well, Amazon links too. And give me your thoughts and comments down below. So very first and foremost, I do want to say really quick, it does seem like Xbox is missing out on a little bit of the heat. As I'm kind of going through right now, if that acquisition right now for Activision and Blizzard would have gone through, I think they would have been very happy. Because right now, Diablo has just come out. I may go and play a little bit of that up on my Twitch stream. I'll have to go and see. But then, funny enough, we pretty much have almost everyone on my phone list going and playing at least a little bit of Diablo. If I were to scroll down, we see a lot more. And then the occasional VTuber I follow that's either doing Duolingo or Stardew Valley. So shout out to all of them as well. But everyone else is pretty much just generally playing a bunch of Diablo, and everyone I know is, well, having a fun time with it. And that would be one kind of big thing too, is that if this acquisition would have gone through, life would have been good right now for Microsoft. But we're going to do a little bit more of an in-depth video in the near future. Basically, it's still in this awkward limbo where it still has also not been approved. And that's also putting a lot more pressure on the most recent releases and the upcoming Xbox showcase. Because right now, Redfall was horrible. A lot of people hated it, and all the leaks coming out have been rough, which we'll cover in a second. And of course, as well, these Fable teasers, all these other upcoming games, and the Starfield. Right now, it's kind of hinging the balance of what if Xbox is going to be able to go and recover or not. And the interesting thing for this one is that, well, it didn't really seem like Redfall was basically the big hitter that they really wanted. So basically, with the report over here, there's a really big Bloomberg article that came out, and everyone's been discussing it and talking about it as of today. We're saying the Xbox exclusive Redfall suffered from a lot of just really bad resources, lack of morale, bad direction, just lack of development, and everything in between. And this also was the very first pretty much big Bethesda game that came out from Xbox. So Redfall, Arcane's vampire shooter, apparently scrapped microtransactions late during development and also had a high turnover for all the employees, and pretty much everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. While Redfall's rough launch and poor review scores caught many Xbox fans off guard, I don't think that caught a lot of people off guard because the game did not look good even off initial gameplays, and that's probably why they waited so long to show gameplay. Bloomberg now reports that developers at the studio behind it, aka Arcane Austin, were aware of these issues for years. Now, that line right there is a one that hurts me and hurts my guts a lot. Apparently, they've known about it for literally years. And it still was released, and it was still sold for $70, and was still not even able to have like a 60 FPS patch and have those issues, and it was still released. Now, this is like a punch to the gut, I feel like, and hopefully Xbox does not allow this to happen ever again. Because, I mean, I played the game for 20 minutes, and I was like, if I was anyone at the higher end, the director or CEO or any type of a company, I would have never let that fly. Like, I have too much respect for myself to allow it. There was a few redeemable qualities too, but maybe they just invested so much money that there's like, we just have to see if we can do anything, maybe even just a Game Pass game, but even then, it was just rough. So basically, the production was apparently understaffed, and it was too directionless to deliver on that promise, while Microsoft remained almost completely hands-off. So this is basically like they take over this acquisition, they know the game's going, and they're like, hey, just figure it out. Like, we're coming in late, you probably know your stuff, hopefully, fingers crossed. And I'm sure there's probably like 20 employees, I don't know the exact employee count, but there's probably like 20 employees sitting there being like, bro, we need like 17 more developers, 15 more art designers, we need 2 people to have a Q&A, we need some testers, we need some storyboard people, we need some dialogue, and I'm sure some random guy who actually cared about the game was sitting there begging, emailing people, or in meetings, or like subtly trying to bring it up, well, like, hey, we might need a little bit more time to cook, and I'm sure there's just a lot of folks who are like, yeah, no, it's making progress, or yeah, could you play the game? Yeah. Okay, then let's sell it. Like, instead of like, is the game good? Like, yeah, no, it's not. It's more of like, it's a game launch. Like, does multiplayer work? And they're like, yeah. And I'm sure there's like I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there was a lot of just communication. It seemed like that weird, awkward acquisition turnover. It just seemed like a lot of bad things altogether. So the company promoting Redfall as the next big blockbuster exclusive for Xbox when it launched on May 2nd. Fans soon discovered the game was riddled with problems. That's sure. However, it was from an empty feeling world to vampire enemies that were occasionally bugged and boring to fight. Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer appeared on the Kind of Funny Games podcast shortly after release to apologize for the state of the game and promised the company would learn from the debacle. I'm upset with myself, he said at the time. Which, once again, though, Xbox is getting more information out from this leak because people are talking about this. Because apparently for this game, like I said, there was just no one cared. Like, no one from Xbox seemed to have cared. And, like, this just can't happen when it comes to games. Like, if you're a PlayStation and you somehow shipped a game, it's almost unacceptable. And it did happen with The Last of Us on PC, and that was unacceptable. But at least for that was like more optimization and kind of translation issues, which is still not allowed. I do not want that. I don't condone that. But at the same time, like with the game launch in PS5, it was still a good game, a good experience. But Redfall is just a bad game. Like, it wasn't like, I mean, it was poorly optimized, yes, but it also just was a bad game. It was not, there's no redeemable qualities. You really can't go and fix it. As well, they also wanted to go and pitch this game as a live service game with microtransactions. So number one, they also want to have people either on Game Pass or $70 price tag to then also have microtransactions in the game. So once again, that was a horrible idea because if the game was just bad, no one wanted to play it. No one would have spent money on the game itself. It's just a bad, like no one wants that. So one of the questions in everyone's mind was, why was Microsoft not only decide to release Redfall, agreed, that game, even just playing it for 20 minutes should have been delayed and or canceled, as much as it probably would have been awful because there was just so much promotion and hype behind it, and then they should have stayed and held off on the promotion. But I think that's just on the fact that they basically have had no good games out for Xbox, no offense to Xbox, but like there hasn't been anything big. Like, we're still waiting for Starfield and this upcoming, basically conference, but they probably wanted something. Like we've heard a lot of rumors that the Game Pass numbers have been falling pretty consistently, and I wouldn't doubt it, but even then, still, I don't know. So basically, in its current state, rather than delay it again or cancel it, but the company has been marketing it so much it was clear internally that it wouldn't meet fans' growing expectations, and I myself would even see that too as well. So according to Bloomberg, Microsoft was barely involved in the game's development outside of making the decision to cancel the PlayStation 5 version of the game after purchasing it from Bethesda. So basically, they did not care. They didn't care at all. They literally did not care about the game in any direction. They barely probably looked at it, and they're like, hey, is it ready to go and be released? And that was about it. And that's horrible. And also trying to go make sure it wasn't included on PlayStation, although it probably would have been worse if it was also included on PlayStation, because at least this was a Game Pass game. If PlayStation would have had this game sold and people were buying this for $70 without reviews or just kind of trusting Arcane or trusting Microsoft, I'm sure people would have been even more upset. So there was a huge influx, apparently backed by the trillion-dollar tech giant that was just, they just never had anything. There was just a lot of insight, a lot of like just lack of money invested into this one too as well. And it was just this trouble that it's had with the prior acquisition. So they reported that 70% of the people on the team who had made the stealth FPS Prey, so the prior game that people really liked, good reviews, I didn't like it myself, but a lot of people, other people liked it, have apparently left Arcane by that time. So this wasn't even the same team, essentially, at that point, with new hires and replaced folks, etc., etc. That is nuts. Yeah. So basically everyone left. Like, there was basically no game studio. There was no attention to detail. There was no money. And this is like so unacceptable for everything from Xbox. Like, this is supposed to be one of the very first games that Bethesda can showcase on. Granted, they'll go and have, Starfield, which hopefully will be a better one and overshadow everything. But even then, this game was marketed very heavily, and I myself was excited for it. So basically, a lot of these folks are just happy. Like, they're not happy with this. Like, they had really poor sales. At one point, it was planning to have an in-game microtransaction economy too around cosmetics, which is stupid. I hate that too as well. These were all eventually scrapped in 2021 as people became more just issues with that in general. And basically the version that's out right now has just been horrible. It just wasn't even good. So it was just sad to see everything with this one too. And apparently also people who were doing playtesting for this one didn't even notice how much the game changed. So throughout the entire development process, they barely cared about the entire game, where basically they dropped a huge report on this one. They said, in the end, Redfall never coalesced. Several people who played the game in 2021 were shocked to see how little ultimately was changed from their feedback. The final glitchy product felt to some critics like a poor compromise between single-player and multiplayer ideas that basically were just bad and just mediocre on both sides, which is just very horrible to go and see. So elsewhere, the report indicates that there were some major staffing issues too, as we covered, and it just kind of seemed like no one had a chance to go and get this worked out. So thankfully, it was on Game Pass. I did not lose that much besides my Game Pass time and the download time and the time to playing it, but it kind of goes to show that sometimes these issues keep on getting rough. So hopefully Xbox can go and clutch up with their upcoming conference. We'd love to hear your thoughts and comments down below. So make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We have the Twitter and Twitch room down below. We have all the Amazon links too as well. Let me know if you guys are picking up Diablo 2 on top of that. I'll talk to you guys all very soon.